Hey, Math 20-1s. Today we're going to look at graphing quadratic inequalities in two variables. We've already graphed linear inequalities, and we've already solved quadratic inequalities, but we haven't done quad inequalities in two variables. So let's have a look at this. So let's look about steps to solving quadratic inequalities with two variables. Step 1, rewrite the inequality so we've got y on one side. So we're talking about two variables. We're talking about x and y now. Graph the corresponding quadratic function. We're going to have a solid line or curve if we're talking about greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, just like we did for linear functions. And it's going to be a broken line or a broken curve if it's just greater than or just less than. And we're going to shade the graph appropriately. If it's greater than or equal to, we're going to shade above the line or the curve. And if it's going to be less than or equal to, we're going to shade below the line or the curve. So you're asked to solve this inequality in two variables. Step 1. Solve it for y. So we're going to divide everything by -1. That means we're going to, or you could bring the y to the one side and all the other terms to the right side. But we get this inequality. Y is less than -x squared minus 3x plus 4. Step 2, we're going to graph the quadratic. So graph the function y equals -x squared minus 3x plus 4. And it looks something like that. And then we're going to decide whether the line should be broken or solid, seeing as how it's a less than symbol. The curve is not part of the solution, so it should be a broken curve. All right, so we should break this curve up. And then the last thing we're going to do is decide whether we should shade above or below the curve. So this says y is less than, we should be shading everything below the curve. So everything inside this curve in here. All right. You guys go ahead and shade inside that curve right in this section. And then we've solved this inequality. All the points underneath or below this curve satisfy the inequality that we started with. So by shading this section, we were saying every point in this section satisfies this solution. You could pick a test point if you want to check. Looks like 0, 0. The origin right here is below the line. And let's see if it works. 0 squared is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. Is -4 less than -0 for y, right? Y was 0 when x was 0. So is -4 less than 0? Yes, it is. So that's a correct part of the solution. All right, so you can always use test points to verify. Let's look at another one. Solve this inequality. So again, step 1 is solve this inequality for y. So let's get y all by itself on one side of the inequality sign. I'd like you to stop the video and do that. Now that you've done that, you should have come up with this inequality. Y is greater than or equal to 2x squared plus 3. If you're not sure how we got that, you can ask me to start a class tomorrow. Once you've got this inequality, we're going to graph the corresponding quadratic function. All right, so if I graph y equals 2x squared plus 3, it looks something like this. And I should decide whether the graph is solid or broken. So is this curve going to be a solid line or a broken line? Well, it's greater than or equal to, so it should stay solid. All right. The last thing to solve this inequality, we're going to decide whether we should shade above or below the curve. Well, it says y is greater than or equal to, so we should shade above this curve. So all this section will be shaded in. And again, we can pick any point in here as a test point we want. You know, maybe something like 0 and 7, 0 and 10. You know, when x is 0, y is 10 would be a nice easy one to check. And check and make sure it's true. All right, so you can always verify by choosing a test point. That's all there is to this section. Try some of these questions. We will work on these in class tomorrow and answer anything you've got, any concern you've got about that. Start a class. We'll talk to you then.